So you want to learn how to play Magic the Gathering. Fair enough. Let us begin your journey into the spellcasting mayhem of Magic the Gathering.
Magic the Gathering pits 2 or more players against each other in glorious magical combat, till only the cleverest wizard remains. In a 2-player game, each player starts with 20 life. You win if you deplete your opponent's life to 0. You can also lose if you have no cards in your deck and you need to draw. Each player in a standard game must have a deck of a minimum of 60 cards. You may only have up to 4 copies of any one card in your deck besides basic lands. What's land, you ask? Why, it's the most important part of the game. Without land, you can't cast any spells. These are the 5 basic lands. They determine what color of mana you can produce to cast spells. Besides lands, there are 6 other spell types: creatures, artifacts, enchantments, planeswalkers, sorceries, and instances. If you look closely at each of the cards, you'll notice they each have a mana cost in the top right. Most spells will have 1 to 5 different colors as well as a number. This shows how much mana you need to produce to cast the spell. Now let's talk about how to play the game. There are 5 phases during each of the player's turns. Decider goes first, and then each player draws a starting hand of 7 cards. After that, whoever's going first begins their turn. Since the game just started, there's nothing to untap or check, so we draw. The only time we don't draw is if we are starting player and it's our first turn. First thing you want to do is play a land. You are allowed to play 1 land every turn for free. Now, on the first turn, you might not have any cards that can be played for just 1 mana, but land is a permanent card, which means it won't leave the battlefield unless destroyed by another card, so it's safe to stay there until your next turn. It's been a few turns now, and we have enough mana to cast a creature. Creatures are great to have on the battlefield at any time. They allow us to attack the opponents and block attacks from enemy creatures. Let's pay the mana by tapping our land. Once a permanent is tapped, it cannot be untapped until your next upkeep unless you have a card that says otherwise. Now our creature is on the battlefield, it is in play. However, since this is the first turn it was summoned, it has summoning sickness, so it cannot attack this turn. It still has the ability to block if needed during the opponent's turn. Let's look at the anatomy of the creature card. In the center, it explains what kind of creature it is. In the text box below, it explains what the creature does and if it has any effects or abilities. And in the bottom right, it has the power and toughness. Let's say we could do combat this turn. To conduct combat, first we declare attackers. In Magic, we can only target the opponent unless specified otherwise by a card. Once you choose all the creatures you want to attack with, and which opponent you are attacking, then it's up to them to decide what to block if they are able to. In this example, they have no creatures, so our creature will deal its power value, in this case 2, to the target player's health. Let's rewind and say they had this creature, and they chose to block it. Each blocking creature may only block 1 attacking creature. When a creature is blocked, both the blocker and attacker deal damage simultaneously. Compare power and toughness to decide which creature wins the altercation. In this example, our creature is stronger, therefore they survive, and the opponent's creature is destroyed. After combat is resolved, we move on to our second main phase. This is similar to the first one. We can play more creatures or other spells if we have the mana to do so. But if you're tapped out like we are, we move on to the end phase. Now it's the end phase, we clean up the board, checking to see what is tapped and looking at our hand. If we have more than 7 cards in our hand at the end of the turn, we have to discard down to 7. After this, our turn is over and we pass to our next opponent. And we proceed in epic magical combat until only 1 remains.
I hope you learn how to play Magic. I hope to see you out there, and I hope you have fun.